From the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between, this is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game. Here we go. It's another edition of the 50/50 Podcast, powered by our proud partners, College Promoters USA. They are America's premier college prep program and high school student athlete marketing service since 1997. Located locally here in the San Antonio area, you can find them in the Ventura Plaza Shopping Center, but you can also find them on social media, on Twitter at SATX Recruiting, as well as on Instagram at College Promoters USA. And you can also get more information on the many awesome things they're doing on their website at collegepromotersusa.com. My next guest, he is joining us here for episode 75. He is the new head men's soccer coach of Howard Payne University, Brandon McGibeny. Brandon, coach, how are you?
Oh, it's good. Just here on the road in Austin at the Sting Austin Showcase. So already hitting the recruiting trail a little bit, but super grateful that you have the time to spend with me here. And again, thank you for having me.
Awesome. He's already on the job. Look at that. So tell us, how's it going? How's it going up in Austin?
Oh yeah. The weather's beautiful here right now in Texas. Nice and rainy, mid 50s.
Yeah.
Perfect soccer weather. But no, it's enjoyable just to be on the road, to get to do what we love and spread the word on Howard Payne, and seeing some familiar faces who are a little bit in shock at the moment, or had already kind of had an idea of what was happening. And so it's good to see familiar faces and get to see some of these kids that we're after as well.
Anything stand out to you so far on that at this ID camp? Number, size, what you expected, larger than expected, smaller than expected, or just the percentage or the quality that's out there? Anything?
Yeah, so Sting Austin for the men's side is smaller than the female side. So Sting, from my understanding, is typically based out of Nebraska in and out of Dallas, and so the Austin chapter is one that's more of the female side. And so now that I'm coming from female to males, we were already planning on being at this one, so decided to still come in and take part of the Austin Showcase.
Right. So how does that sound, by the way? Just in the introduction there, the new, kind of like to do that, like new heavyweight champion, right? Like to try to put that emphasis on it, on new. How does that sound to you? New head men's soccer coach at Howard Payne University.
Yeah, it's still a bit of a shell shock at times. And I'll get a little bit more into my history with Howard Payne, but being a player there as well, as part of the men's program, and now being the head coach for the program, it's a very surreal feeling, and I'm extremely humbled and blessed for the opportunity that the administration is giving me. And it's definitely something. I had a former teammate of mine talk to me about it as I'm talking with alumni. He said, "Well, welcome home," and that one just like immediately in my heart just like gave me that warm feeling. So it's definitely been awesome so far to rekindle relationships and see a lot of the support staff that has been there. But yeah, definitely a surreal feeling so far.
I always love to ask this to coaches, right? New coaches, they've just stepped into a new job. When did you have that moment? And obviously, as you mentioned, we'll get into this more later, but as far as you returning, but excuse me, did you have the moment? Did you recall the moment where it like really hit you like like I'm back. Not only am I back home, but it's like I'm the guy now. I'm the head guy in charge, right? Did you have that moment maybe when you answered the phone, you gave the business card to somebody, you spoke with a recruit somehow or a parent? Have you had that moment really where it's like, oh my God, like this is real, like it hit you right then and there?
So really, it was that same moment where I was actually at the office for the first day, just getting in there to kind of take a look at what I wanted to do with it, if I wanted to rearrange or kind of settle myself in a little bit. And then after the day was over, one of my former teammates is on the women's staff, and so we were talking, and he's the one that told me, he's like, "Well, welcome home." And it wasn't me re-entering the building. It wasn't seeing the field for the first time in a while. It was him just saying welcome home. And that's a word that really struck me internally, is home. And that's really what Brownwood is and Howard Payne is for me right now. It's home.
Great stuff. So and we've alluded to it a little bit already, but for maybe some of our listeners that may not know in terms of Howard Payne, may not know you, where you've been, just briefly, Coach, you don't have to give us the whole bio, but just maybe give us a synopsis of where you've been and how you got to Howard Payne.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a two-parter there with how I got to Howard Payne. And so my journey there as a player was very interesting, in the sense that I didn't know where or what Howard Payne was until my grandmother actually reached out to me as I was looking for my next step after high school, which I grew up in the Central Texas area. I went to Belton High School, which is about an hour north from Austin. We were a very prolific program within our district and within our region,
Right.
Super competitive, and great pedigree, great played under a great coach as well in Shizo Mosnia. But my grandmother actually went to Howard Payne, and then my aunt and uncle also went to Howard Payne, my other family members as well. And so this is something I didn't know. That was just like a family heritage type of thing. And so this is about spring break, as guys do. They love to wait to make decisions on where they're going to go, because
Right.
they're not thinking about the future, they're thinking about the now. And I was definitely one of those guys. And so she said, well, let me take you to Howard Payne on a visit. And she took me, and immediately, as soon as I walked on campus and had my visit, I fell in love with the community, fell in love with the staff that I interacted with the professors that I got to interact with. I spoke with the coaches, and started the recruiting process from there. So it was kind of a backwards deal where I met the coach on campus first and then was recruited. And so that's how I ended up as Howard Payne as a coach. Kind of fast forward to now. The last 4 years, I've been at Cisco College as the women's head coach there, which is a Division I junior college in Region 5,
Right.
which has been a great experience for me as a young coach. That was my first full-time position, my first head coaching position. And it was somewhere that God really called for me to be there. Before Cisco College, I was at Howard Payne still as the part-time assistant, or part-time graduate employee, if you will, as basically a graduate assistant under Brandon Badgley, who is still the women's coach there at Howard Payne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now I get the opportunity to be under one of my mentors, or not under him, but I get to work alongside him now, under someone who's meant a lot to me in my coaching journey. And our relationship is fantastic. He actually married me and my wife. He's been a great resource for me in my young coaching career. And so to be back now with him as well, with our offices side by side, is going to be fantastic.
Great stuff. So he actually married you all too, huh? That's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff. So talk to us a little bit, returning home to Howard Payne.
Right.
Why well, besides the obvious that there was an opening, why was the time right from your
Yeah.
perspective, right?
So funny enough, so Cisco is about 45 minutes south, or I'm sorry, is about 45 minutes north of Brownwood. And so during my graduate assistantship, I started dating a girl, and she was in Brownwood at Howard Payne, and ended up that just something felt right, and I didn't want to go too far away. And so when Cisco College came open, it was a great opportunity for me professionally, but it was also a great opportunity for me to be close to her as well. And so I moved up to Cisco, which is, again, 45 minutes away. So it's not too bad of I wouldn't call it long distance. And then just so happened that I married that lady, and now we're expecting our first child. So I think things worked out fairly well. And so Aaron and I have been together for almost 2 years, 2 years in May. So about 1 year and 9 months now. And so, so when this opportunity came open, she's actually been working at Howard Payne for almost 1 year now. And so this past summer, we actually bought a house in Brownwood and moved back. So instead of her commuting from Cisco to Brownwood, which she was doing, now I was commuting from Brownwood to Cisco, because it's just a community that we love so much. And there's so many people that we still are in touch with that are so great to us. And so it's not anything that I can say that I put together. It was strictly God's plan for us, I believe. We, as I alluded to just a little bit ago, we're expecting our first child now. We own a house, and then just so happened that I get to work alongside my main mentor, Brandon Badgley, and get to experience Howard Payne again as a head coach. And it was a place that I truly, and I'm sure I'll say this again, and I already have, I hold near and dear to my heart. And so, yeah, that was kind of the timing. It just, I wouldn't say that it was really timing for me, that it was just like something I've been thinking about for a long time, or because I think there was still work to do in Cisco. I think we had the program on the right direction. We had the first winning season since 2015 at the school. We ended the year in the United Soccer Coaches National Rankings for the first time since 2014. So there was a lot of great things happening at Cisco College. But when God calls you and he puts that work in your life, you can't say no to him. And so, that's why now.
Yeah. Such great stuff. It's a lot of blessings, but that's a lot of change, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
they always say that
one,
they always say tragedies comes in threes. Have you ever heard that saying?
I have. Yeah.
I like to think blessings comes in threes as well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I've seen that as well.
Right.
So.
Right. That's such great stuff. And first one on the way in in the summer, right?
July,
Correct?
yes, sir.
July. So tell us. So what do we know? What can you share? Have you guys had the great gender reveal? You're keeping it a secret. What do we know so far?
Not a secret. We are putting the name under wraps for a while, but we did announce a couple weeks ago that we will have a boy. So super excited about that.
All right, great job. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, hey, any new chance I can get to play with some of our features here. So that is great stuff, though. So congratulations to both of you and your wife. And you'll have to let us know. Obviously, definitely wishing you all much success with the many blessings as well. And you'll have to let us know once that name reveal is out there as well.
Yes, sir.
So,
could still be Hector. You never know.
Oh, hey, great name. If you know anything about Homer's Iliad, it's a great name. So, now Did you, when it comes to Howard Payne, did you envision, or did you know, or did you envision that you would return one day? It was, there's the difference between, hey, I'd like to, versus you just kind of deep down inside knew you'd be back one day, being that you were there once as an assistant. Where were you with that?
It was always something that was in the back of my mind. Um, but I know, so going on the women's side, the women's track, I know Coach Badgley is going to be there for a long time. He's also an alumni of the program. He actually helped start. He was one of the students that put together the proposal for Howard Payne to bring soccer on both the men and women's side. And so it's a place again that it's not just a program that we just so happen to fall in love with. It's something that truly means something to us both. And so I kind of, after a while, gave up the idea that he was ever going to leave on the women's side and I could take over that.
I'm sure he's going to love that, right? I'm sure he'll love that comment.
Yeah. I'm sure he will, and he'll let me know about it. But I always said that if there was one job that I would allow myself to just jump straight back into the men's game, it would be Howard Payne. And it's because I know what it's like to go through that locker room. I know what Howard Payne is like as a student. And I just I feel like I can relate more because I truly believe that the relational aspect of between men and women and the communication style is just different. Not that the game is different, but there are just different things that you have to be aware of. And so being on the women's side for 6 years now, it took me some time to transition to that. But I do believe that it'll be a fairly seamless transition because I do know what it's like to be in this program.
Right. So, and that's an interesting point as well, because so you're returning to the men's side of the house, if you will. How even the game is the game, right? But in terms of, you also have to know your audience, right? In terms of your athletes, your student athletes, any initial just jitters beyond just coaching is coaching? Yes, the game is the game, but just jitters in making that return back to the men's side from the women's side?
Not necessarily. I was actually, so my household, I only grew up with my brothers. My sisters were off and lived in separate areas, so I never grew up with them. And so I strictly grew up with my brothers. And so I understand that's more of like my upbringing was more just the male side. I didn't really have the female aspect. And something you may not know, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this with your background as well, as my father was a military man. He was did his career in the Army, which I know you'll have some hesitation with that one, but being from the Air Force, but
yeah.
But yeah,
I spent 8 years. I spent 8 years of my career attached. My uniform said Air Force, but I was with the Army for about 8 years. So no, it's how it is. It's the joking rivalry, of course, amongst all. But yeah, no, absolutely no. Make sure you tell them thank you for his service on behalf of the podcast. Thank you for that. Yeah.
And really, because when he was doing his career, he did 22 years, something around that range. He was during Afghanistan, during Iraq, during Desert Storm. So he was gone on deployment a good amount of my life or my upbringing. Right. And I don't say that to say that I grew up without my father, but it was my mother, and she had to deal with the boys.
Yeah.
Right. And so we kind of just did our thing. I mean, with respect to my mother as well, but we were a handful. I know that. And so,
of course,
I know that for sure.
But you're a different type of, growing up as military brats, right? As they're just military kids, they're different in a special way, in a great way, so I could only imagine. So it's not like a prototypical young kid, right? They're raised a little differently. They have to endure things differently. They tend to be much more used to much more diversity and a lot, they tend to be very resilient than your prototypical young kid who is already very resilient, right?
Right. And I'm actually a special type of Army brat, I like to say, because I never moved.
Oh,
And
nice. Look
so,
at that.
yeah, it was a strange
Yeah.
situation. But yeah, my dad kind of would do deployments, but he would always return. And then he ended up having a surgery that whenever his company was moving to a different location, it ended up having him stay at Fort Hood. And so
Okay.
I never actually moved because when that happened, when we were supposed to move, he moved companies.
Right.
He moved from First Cavalry to Fourth ID, and
Gotcha. Okay.
so yeah.
Great stuff. Great story. So that's got to be fun. That's got to be interesting. So you return to the men's side, and now 4 years on the women's side at Cisco College. That's a lot, right? So how how do you feel that not the jump from the women's back to the men's game, but just the 4 years at Cisco? How do you feel that's prepared you for now for this moment?
Well, you know what they say is I've heard coaches tell me that 1 year at JUCO is 2 years in real life. And
I've heard
so
that before. Yeah. Yeah.
so if you look at it, maybe it says 4 years, but it could feel like an 8 years worth of experience because you wear so many hats. Um, and and I think that because I've had to do, you know, it's no secret that the junior college resources are not as much typically as your four-year
Right.
universities. And so as far as manpower, as far as amenities, um, and so I had to learn, especially as a first-time head coach, how to do so many different things, admin-wise. Uh, I was still coming into my own as far as um, learning how to do training on the field. I was a goalkeeper at Howard Payne. I was a goalkeeper coach, and then I did more defensive tactics towards the second year of my graduate assistantship. And so now I was in charge of an entire program. And so over the last 4 years, I feel like I've come into my own um, because I've had to, and I was thrusted into that opportunity rather than just kind of feeling it out like some people do with being an assistant for a long time. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. My first few months, I felt like I was drowning because I just had so much to do. Um, but it prepared me now that I've gotten to make so many great connections within this world of the game, and whether those are women's connections or those are men's connections, they're connections nonetheless that are always there for me. Um, you know, there's so many people that I could call right now, and that I've seen even here out at the showcase that there's a community of coaches that are just so willing to help and were congratulatory to me. But I feel that my 4 years at junior college prepared me to speak fluently within training and then also seek out development. Development in junior college is not just about development for the kids. You get to develop as a coach so quickly. Your recruiting has to be on point because you have to scout, you have to recruit half of your team, if not a little bit more every year. And so you're consistently speaking to players, recruiting players, getting those conversations. And so I got very well versed in that very quickly because of how much we had to do. And then you're also getting to train a lot more than what you do at the Division III level, at least in the spring, because the development period in the spring for junior college is very much like a Division I or Division II model, in the sense that you get a longer time period, and you get now what it used to be 4 games, now you get 6 play dates.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of opportunity for not only the players to develop, but for us as coaches to try different things and to implement new ideas. And that's something that this is a game that you will continue to learn as long as you want. you're never not learning in this game. And if you do stop learning, that's typically when you start to get out.
Right. That's when it's time to hang them up. Yeah, absolutely. So for the aspiring coach, or maybe the aspiring student athlete right now in high school that doesn't really understand, doesn't really know much about junior college, how do you, the elevator speech in terms of the junior college experience, right? On both of those fronts, what do you say to them?
So first is the price point. At Cisco College, our overall bill for the year was $9,000 without any athletic scholarship applied or financial aid applied. And so the price point is fantastic. And we tie that to the amount that you're going to play, in the sense that you still have to earn your position. You still have to earn your time, but there is so many opportunities for you to jump in right away and play, because everyone is in that first or second year, potentially third year, especially with the COVID year in play over the last few years. I think now everyone in the junior college route has graduated out of their COVID year. But there's so much opportunity for you to play right away at the junior college level.
Right.
Where I know as for me, I actually sat my first 2 years of college. We had some great goalkeepers in front of me, and I had to really learn how to become, I wouldn't say a professional, but how to really be more professional in a training sense, because it's just a completely different level from high school or club to college. And so got to learn under some great guys in front of me my first 2 years. And then, but I could have spent that at a junior college potentially. And, now I'm talking about the price point of Howard Payne a little bit and maybe hurting myself here, but on the recruiting side, but I am a big advocate because of the development that you can get at a junior college, and then also the amount of money you can save those first 2 years while you're doing that development period. Mm-hmm. And it has to be something that's right for you. If you don't believe that it's truly good for you, then I understand. But when we're out at a showcase and we say, oh, we're a Division I junior college, and then people kind of turn their nose away just because of our name, that's a hard pill to swallow. But mm-hmm. I truly believe that it can be advantageous for so many people, whether you come from a low income background or not.
Yeah, and just like the junior college side, you mentioned, you spoke to it just very good briefly right now. But, now you move on, Howard Payne, to D3, and that tends to be a high quality, high caliber level of soccer played as well. Great institution where you're at now. But it also tends to be often misunderstood or overlooked, right? Or maybe they're one and the same, right? But even from on that front, on the D3 side, what has you excited to be returning to not only Howard Payne, but to the D3 soccer side?
Yeah, I think there's just a purity about the game.
Right.
You're not getting people who are worried about their money, whether it's, I feel like I should be getting more scholarship, or I'm worried because I'm not producing as much as maybe my scholarship says I should be, or there's for Division III, you're really there for the love of the game and the holistic approach of the student athlete vision. And it's truly a student athlete community. And so what we do at Howard Payne is we truly focus on what your academic side will look like. So when I look at a recruit, I look at their GPA and what they're wanting to study, because that's super important to me to know, okay, are they taking their education seriously in high school? Because that can be indicative of what they're going to do in college as well. There's different circumstances, I understand, for some people, but it does matter. Your grades do matter, especially. And what I said to you, I think off air, we had a couple of people possibly tuning in today. I think that's one thing that is very important for me and that they should know was the academic side is just, if not more important to me than the athletic side, because that's the Division III model, right? It's the holistic approach of your academics and the true meaning of a student athlete. Now, we are still going to put a huge emphasis on the athletic side because we want to be competitive. We want to be successful on the field. If I didn't want to be competitive on the field or successful, I don't know why I would be coaching.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so, but there has to be, it has to be known that we at Howard Payne are going to be very focused on the academic side as well as the athletic.
So what can put you on the spot here a little bit? What can people expect, or better yet, let me rephrase that. How will Howard Payne University men's soccer look different under you in year one?
So we kind of had this expectation conversation in our first team meeting. The players asked kind of what my expectations for them were. And I really put it under 4 pillars, and it's something that we implemented at Cisco as well. It's really 4 words or 4 phrases. Is being respectful, and that's being respectful of yourself, your teammates, your loved ones, your professors, of the opponent, of the officials, just being a respectful and being a good human. Be competitive. We want to be competitive in all things, not just the game that we spend 90 minutes playing, but in training. If we're, out on the field playing pickup, we want to be competitive. If we're,
Right.
playing cards in the locker room, if we're, or playing dominoes, whatever it is, we want to be competitive. Third one was we want to serve. We want to be servant leaders first. And that's something that I hold dear to me, is that I want to be someone that the players know that they can use as a reference, as a model of the servant leadership. So I'm going to be there for them. I want to be a coach that puts in the time for them, not only athletically again, but personally, to get to know them. We want to serve the community, and we want to serve our campus as well. And then lastly is to be curious. And I brought up the famous Ted Lasso nowadays, and his "Be curious, not judgmental" speech in season 1. And for us, when we set that, it was, we want to be curious, yes, of people and of other cultures, and because I believe college sports are, especially the locker rooms, are such a melting pot of people. You're getting so many, even within the small schools in Texas. Most of our players on the roster are from the state of Texas, but Houston is different than San Antonio. San Antonio is different than Austin. Austin's different than Dallas or El Paso or East Texas. Right. And so there's different cultures, different upbringing. Maybe someone moved in from, Connecticut, whatever. So your upbringing is completely different. You're raised in different styles. And so just because someone comes off a certain way, whether that's a good or a bad way, we want to be curious of what makes them tick and ask questions to get to know people. And that kind of feeds into the culture of being a team first type of person, and wanting to know your teammates. And I think that kind of goes into not being cliquish in a sense. And so those 4 things really for us, and also being curious in training, to touch one more thing on that 4th one. Being curious to, hey, I'm a wing player. Can I do something different today to defeat my defender 1v1, or as a goalkeeper, can I be curious of how can I distribute a little bit differently to make it more efficient? So definitely those four things: being respectful, being competitive, being a servant, and being curious.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And you talked about the famous Ted Lasso speech, right there in the pub. He gives the famous barbecue sauce statement, right, which segues us perfect into this, right? So my fellow co-host of Inside Texas High School Soccer, Coach Rafa Castorena, gives us a comment here. He said he loves so you got to tell me about this Underwoods, man. I'm assuming you had to have been there. What can you tell me about it?
So Underwoods is a Brownwood staple. Their main things is unlimited sides and unlimited rolls and cobbler. So
sounds like my kind of place already.
There you go.
Sounds like my kind of place.
That they do the barbecue, but like for me, a good barbecue joint is only as good as its sides, right? And so if I go, I'm going to load up on the mac and cheese, the green beans, mashed potatoes, possibly, coleslaw, potato salad. They got it all. And then on top of that, you keep coming down the line, and you got the cherry cobbler, the apple, the peach. It just goes on and on. Yeah, I got your mouth watering already.
You're about to derail this podcast because I'm going to lose focus here. So
yeah. So the owner, Paul Underwood, it's been a family-owned business. I actually have started playing pickleball in my free time as my activity, and I absolutely love it. But he's in part of that group within Brownwood that plays, and so hopefully we can get the hookup on Underwoods here soon.
Big pickleball community there in Brownwood. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, actually, it's quite large. It's there's a really big group that plays, and they're actually putting pickleball courts on campus at Howard Payne, and then they're building some pickleball courts in one of the parks in the middle of town. So going to be pretty large pickleball.
Nice.
Coming out of Brownwood soon.
There you go. Well, make sure you put in a good word to Paul for the 50/50 podcast there. All right, so we'd love that.
Next time you're traveling up towards El Paso, just head north instead of going I-10.
Yeah, I've never been to Brownwood. As like the closest I came to Brownwood was when I was when the family and I, when I was stationed in Abilene at Dias, right? It was all of 6 months, right? That's where I retired out of, and so never had that opportunity to go that direction, which isn't far at all. But
yeah, they got all the pictures of everybody on the walls that have been through there, and they got autographed pictures and whatnot. So it's a staple for sure.
Right.
A lot of people know Underwoods is Brownwood, or Brownwood is Underwoods.
Yeah, great stuff. So obviously you're on the trail already. You're there. You're talking to us live from Austin right now. But what's the spring looking like in terms of just training, and as well as where are you going to be this spring as far as ID camps, or are you having any? What's your spring looking like?
Yeah, so I'm actually still transitioning out of Cisco. I'll technically be out officially at the end of the month, and so Tuesday will be my last official day at Cisco, and so I'll be full time in the office at Howard Payne. It helps that I live there, so I can spend a few hours at night up at the office. So that's where most of my work has come so far. But so I say that to tell you that dates as far as ID camps and things like that on campus are still yet to be determined. But I remember listening to your episode with Lance Key, and you gave him a hard time about that after only being there for 3 days. And so I had to let you know.
I told him it was unacceptable. I told him, right? Shout out to Lance.
So just to quote him, ID camps come on day 4.
There you go. All right. So that will be when? So that'll be what, February 3rd, I think? Is that when I hit you up?
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good.
February 4th. There you go. All right.
I'll give you till I'll do him one better and make it the 3rd day. How about that?
There you go. Yeah.
Um, but as far as the spring, we have strength and conditioning with our strength and conditioning coach on campus. So I won't be involved in that, but it'll be an opportunity for the guys to get involved with that as often as they would like. And then we will begin looking. We're still solidifying our play date for the spring to where we can begin training with the fall, or for the spring rather. And so again, it's something that we don't want to take lightly, is just rushing things as far as just getting on the field and not knowing the guys relationally. And so I think that's a super important portion of what we're going to do this next week, is just have them in the office to where we can get to know them a little bit better as individuals, why they chose Howard Payne, what they're,
Right.
What they're studying, and, kind of where they're from, family backgrounds, stuff like that. And so that's really going to be the main focus the next week or two, is just to get to know them a little bit better.
Gotcha.
And that, again, it's going to, all great relationships take time and they take effort. And that's something that we want to make sure that we're putting in, is that time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Thoughts on engaging this is kind of a two-parter, really,
Okay.
But thoughts on engaging the Texas high school soccer community, and what have you noticed from your time when you played to now in terms of the Texas high school soccer scene?
Yeah, no, so, I didn't play, but I graduated in 2013 from high school. So it hasn't even necessarily, this will be 10 years, I guess you would say, is this spring. And so for me, it's still a bit fresh in the high school span. There's been a lot more realignment, like there is every other a couple of years, but there's just been so much diversity within the success of different programs, and there's a lot more programs now actually that weren't around during 10 years ago. And so just to speak on my hometown, there's a new high school, Lake Belton, and so that's kind of drawn the talent pool in Belton, kind of split it in half. And so two competitive programs in the hometown compared to just the one. I always like to brag, with my high school teammates, we never lost a home game, during our time. And so I believe they actually lost last night. So
wow.
At home.
Yeah.
And so,
they'll love that shout out too, right?
Yeah. Well, and the head coach is actually one of my former teammates, and so he will definitely love that. But especially in Brownwood, the Brownwood itself is growing tremendously within high school soccer, both the men and women's programs. Mike Westerman is the men's coach, or the boys coach, or men's coach, however you'd like to say, at Brownwood High. And we played together my junior and senior year at Howard Payne. And so I know Mike pretty well, and he's heavily involved in the soccer community in Brownwood. And that's a great resource for me to be getting in touch with, as far as not only for the high school and recruiting homegrown kids, but also recreational leagues and youth development. He's someone that loves the game and loves Brownwood itself. And so the high school community in that big country area itself is getting better and better, and extremely excited to continue to support them, whether it's Abilene or San Angelo, mm-hmm. Graham, Mineral Wells, Brownwood, just that entire area there, Stephenville as well.
Stephenville, for sure. Yeah.
Great women's program out of there. Boys as well have been very competitive as of late. And so, yeah, the dynamic of high school soccer now, it just continues to get better and better, and I believe that's just the game growing within the state.
Recently we had just earlier this week. Speaking of, ironically, his name came up, but earlier this week we had a post that went, I don't know, viral, if you will. Was a very proved to be a very popular post with, I don't know if you saw it. It was a quote from Lance Key, right?
Yeah,
Talking about uh, recruiting at actual high school
absolutely.
games, right? At Texas
Yeah.
high school soccer. What are your thoughts on that? What do you say to, because that's the overwhelming narrative, right? Is, hey, you're never going to get seen at a high school game. Don't go. College coaches, they just don't attend. They don't say what level. They just say college coaches don't, right? What do you say to that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I disagree. I know I know the quote kind of Lance brought up the Governor's Cup at Georgetown, and Coach McCutcheon there at Georgetown was actually he started the men and women's programs at Howard Payne, and so
Mhm.
he's one of the coaches that I spoke with on my visit there when I decided, that's where I wanted to go. He was one of the main reasons, and so he's been a great uh, um, resource for me to go back and forth with on not only for recruiting but just hey, I'm at Howard Payne or whatever. I got the Cisco job. Hey, I got the Cisco job. What can you tell me about the landscape for junior college within what you've seen? Because he's been around the game for so many years. And
Yeah.
yeah, when I was the GA at Howard Payne, when I was at Cisco, and now as the men's coach at Howard Payne, um, we travel as much as we can to watch high school games, and especially tournaments. I was just up at Dr. Pink a couple
Mm,
of weeks ago.
right.
Uh, you know, there's multiple tournaments, Governor's Cup. There's the Northeast and Southwest in San Antonio tournaments. There's San Mark. I mean, I could list on and on the different tournaments, but uh, most of what we found at Cisco, we honestly would see a lot of girls first in high school before we saw them in club.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's so many great players that just can't afford it. So many great players that can't afford it. And so some of our best players over the last 4 years at Cisco strictly played high school or just could not afford to play a high level club. So
Yeah.
they weren't going to be seen at showcases, but they were still playing year round. And so I'm a huge proponent of getting out and spending the time um, to watch high school games and connect with those coaches because you never know who you're going to see. And every high school has a player that can play.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it just, especially in, you talk about the UIL, you talk about on the public school side, those first 3 weeks in January, right?
Yeah, huge.
If you're a college coach, not even just in Texas, but in the surrounding states, why you wouldn't be attending any of those? I mean, because you can hit so many in just in that 3 week span and watch a lot of great play, a lot of great players. So,
Yeah, and to
um,
touch on that, the Dr. Pink was Frisco ISD. Um, I believe it was the first or second week. I believe it was first weekend of January, and you had obviously the Frisco ISD teams and teams from Dallas, but then you also had El Paso, you had Houston, you had Austin, Dallas, or I'm sorry, San Antonio. You had teams from all over the state coming into play in this
mhm,
tournament. And
right.
so, why would you not go out there and watch all these different the diversity of the game within our state?
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. So as we start to transition here, Coach, got one final question for you before we move on to our second segment. But this is a question as of late, on and off and on. I like to ask coaches, especially coaches that are in a new role, right, in a new position. But so finish this sentence. the 2023 Howard Payne University men's soccer season will be a success if
we will be successful if we get the most out of our players for that year. And so what I always say that means is you never know what's going to happen within the season. You don't know whether injuries can occur. There's mental things outside of your control, especially with the emphasis of mental health now, which is fantastic that people are bringing that to light. You just don't know what is going on completely, and that's okay. Right. But we can't tie ourselves to, for me to come in and say, we're going to win the conference and we're going to, do all this on the wins and loss record. That is something that we will aim to do, is be competitive and to win every single game. That is overall what we want to do. But if we tie our success to the year on that, then we're going to be let down, because there's only one team that lifts the trophy at the end of the year. And so how can we evaluate and tie our success to our individual growth and development? And so that'll be tied in with our meetings with the guys that we'll have, and we'll set team goals and milestones that we want to reach in order to achieve what we ultimately want to. But as long as we at the end of the year can evaluate and say, man, we got everything we could out of this team, I think that's success.
Well said. Well said. He is Coach Brandon McGibeny, the new head men's soccer coach of Howard Payne University. Coach, this has been great. A lot of great info here. Thank you for that. We know you're going to stick around. We get to pick on you a little bit with our counter tag segment. Have some fun with you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. As the lead sponsor and proud supporter of the 50/50 podcast, alongside Coach Hector Cano, College Promoters is proud to be elevating its support for the college soccer recruiting process more than any other service in the country. If your son or daughter is serious about competing in college soccer, call College Promoters USA directly at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athlete.
And we're back with Coach Brandon McGibeny, the head men's soccer coach of Howard Payne University. Coach, it is just about that time. But before we do, let me tell you about our good friends at Gipper. So as you know, we've been partnered with them now with Gipper for 6 months. They are doing some cutting edge stuff in the world of graphics, right? So marketing graphics. So going on 7 months actually that we've been with them now. And our personal experience has been great. Gipper's the way schools, athletic departments, ADs, and coaches create world-class marketing content. Join over 2,500 coaches and ADs and use Gipper to create high-quality, visually branded graphics for your program. The best part, anyone can do it in seconds on any device without needing any design experience. I can tell you this, I have a good amount of experience in this, and even for the power user, the more experienced user, they give you all kinds of different options, so much more in terms of resources. So love being a partner with them. So now for our listeners, if you may be a listener of the 50/50 podcast, we're going to give you an opportunity to capitalize on that if you're interested. So listeners of the 50/50 podcast can receive a 10% off any first-time Gipper purchase. All you got to do is visit gipper.com/partner/5050 to learn more. Again, that's gipper.com/partner/5050. All right, Coach, counter tech. It's the moment of truth.
Yes, sir. I'm
All
ready
right.
for it. As a
Here we go.
goalkeeper, I always had to slow these things down, so I'm ready to deflect these shots you're going to throw.
Deflect. Deflect being the key word. All right. First one, VAR or VAR, whichever you want to call it. Yes or no?
In college,
Just in general in the game.
I think it can be utilized well, but it's not at the moment.
So is that a yes or a no?
I'll say yes.
That's a yes. Okay. He's deflecting already, right? Question one, he's deflecting already. Listen to him. All right. Secret talent that you have that very few people may know.
In high school, I was a percussionist. And so throughout college and now as an adult, I haven't really shown that quite often as far as my percussion skills, whether that's xylophone, snare drum, bass drum. I did a little bit of like a drum set, a trap set, but was never like great at that. Just there's too many things going on. But yeah, so orchestrated percussion was actually a huge thing for me growing up.
Nice. Great stuff. Favorite number and why?
I was always drawn to 7. I was born January 7th, and so that was kind of my thought process going throughout. And then that was really it.
All right. So you don't need too much depth there. That's pretty simple.
The lucky number 7 is what everyone says.
Okay. Next one for you. So you got a couple different options here. You can go. So greatest ever, you can go male and female, or just one, or your personal favorite, but greatest male and or female soccer player.
Man, I might get in. This might already cause controversy in the locker room with what I'm about to say, but I'm a Messi guy. I'm definitely a Lionel Messi guy. And then for me on the women's side, you can't really talk about greatest players of all time without mentioning Marta. Just for so long and for how consistent she's been, just such a fantastic player.
Okay, good. Not bad. Pretty good. Bucket list destination.
Kilkenny, Ireland. And so that's that's very specific. And so Kilkenny, I am Scotch Irish, and that's actually where my family originated, was Kilkenny, Ireland, which I believe is just southwest of Dublin.
Yeah, not
so
far.
My family was apparently they had a castle there at one time, and my grandfather's very big into genealogy before he passed, and so that was one of the bucket list items, was to visit our homeland and get a picture with our family crest in Kilkenny, Ireland.
Wow. Yeah. Ireland happened to be one of those countries where we frequented past. I spent multiple trips going through there on the way down range. That was one of the initial stops, and so yeah, had an opportunity to spend probably, I don't know, maybe if I totaled it all up, maybe a week and a half, maybe a little less than 2 weeks in Ireland. Pretty fascinating stuff. Great place.
It helps that it's just beautiful there. So
yeah, absolutely. And I love the people. I love the people. I can tell you that. Hobby you discovered during the pandemic?
So I would actually say walking. It was something that we wanted to get, me and my wife, we wanted to get out of the house. And so it's something that I found that really helped us just clear our mind a little bit. And so there was like about a 45-minute loop that we would do from the house when we were in Cisco. And we would just walk through town and walk through different neighborhoods. And then it was a way for us to communicate together and spend time one another outside of the house, not watching TV. And I think we had a lot of great conversations. So that was how I started getting more engaged in walking.
You're not, when I've asked that question a few times in the past, you're not the first coach to answer that, to give that answer, which is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Pretty cool.
I think we all beat up our bodies well enough
Right.
that
Yeah.
so I actually tore my Achilles this past summer, and so that's actually why I started playing pickleball. It was the first competitive sport that I could play that wasn't very aggressive on my joints. And so, especially with recovering, I didn't have to do a bunch of explosive movements, or at least not very much. And so that's, the last 2.5 months, it's really become something I can do consistently. So we put our bodies through some different stuff as coaches when we're still dreaming that we can be one of those guys on the field.
Right. Yeah. From my playing days and my coaching days to obviously my active duty days, podcasting, thank God, has not been as hard on my joints either. So thank God.
Yeah.
Maybe
just on the lower back.
Yeah, you ain't lying. So next, so if the all-time greatest player won't get you in trouble in the locker room, this one probably will, right? Greatest sports movie.
Miracle.
Yeah.
Miracle.
It's one of mine. I have like a kind of a three-headed monster with greatest sports movies, mine personally. So and that's one.
If I had to go greatest soccer movie, it would be Goal.
Love that movie. Yeah. Love that one. Great movie. All right, next one. Watching, yes or no? Watching a movie alone in a theater. Yes or no?
Yes, I'm good with that. When my wife and I were not married yet, living apart, and I would go on, or even just recruiting trips on my own, there's something we're done early or whatever, I would go to a movie by myself and I would greatly enjoy it. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Me too. Now, this one I ask every coach we've had on, I've asked this. So soccer czar, you're appointed the soccer czar in America, right? What's the first change you would make regarding soccer in America tomorrow? Item or agenda item number one. What is it?
Accessibility. You look at, the boroughs or the neighborhoods in England where it's such a large part of their, or even, South America, Africa as well. It's just such a large part of their culture. It's because it's so easily accessible for them to just grab a ball, find a patch of grass, or even a field or a patch of dirt, a street, whatever, and they just play. And that somehow, if we can incorporate in America more kids playing at younger ages just to have fun and not for development or for, with personal trainers, anything like that. It's just getting them to play pickup games and have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How we can increase that.
So in our last episode of the podcast, we had, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but we had Tom Byer on, right? International renowned Tom Byer. And he talked about the culture piece that you're talking about, and the accessibility was that the kid, the young child, the young kid, whatever you want to call him, with the ball, is those 8 countries that have won the World Cup. That's what they have figured out, placing the focus and the emphasis at the entry level versus on the elite level, like all the other true, non-footballing countries, if you will, or the ones that are nowhere near close to a World Cup, is they tend to place the emphasis on the elite level versus the entry level. So kind of speaks a little bit to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And, there's the place for your elite trainers and your elite teams, but, our greatest dribblers in the world, Neymar being a great example, he didn't learn what he does by someone setting out cones for him.
No. Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Absolutely. Any, as a coach, not as a player, game day superstitions or rituals?
I always like to get up to the field early. We especially at Cisco, we had to do setup of our own field and goals, playing on a high school football field and turf, and so we had to place everything out ourselves. And so I always liked to get there early and just kind of and it's still something I enjoy doing, is just to feel the serenity of the quietness of the field, because I know what's about to happen, and I know the battles and the intensity that should be happening on the field here in the next hour or two. And so just to kind of visualize what's going to happen. And then I'm very big on visualization. I was the same way as a player, as a goalkeeper. I would visualize the game beforehand and envision what I would do in the moment. And so it's the same way as a coach, is what are they going to try and throw at me? Can I prepare myself mentally? And I love to do that before each game.
Yeah. Most recent binge watch: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video. What's been the recent binge watch?
Yeah, so me and the wife, we enjoy The Circle on Netflix. Mm-hmm. It's like a social media experiment kind of deal. And so
the series, huh? Series?
It is. I think they just did their 3rd or 4th season. And so I was up in Dallas the last few days, and so at night I was free, and so I was watching The Circle on TV.
Nice. Good stuff. I want to say that sounds kind of familiar, but yeah, I'm not sure. I might, unless I'm confusing it with something else though. But pretty
other
good.
Than that, a more common thing was I actually I'm late to the party, so I started watching Game of Thrones. So I'm in season 5 of Game of Thrones right now.
Yeah. See, I went the opposite on that. I was early to the party. I was like season 1. I was like, oh, this is pretty awesome, right? And hung around through season 2, and then it just kind of fell off the radar for me. And then I never followed up with it. So I've pretty much only seen through season 2, and then somewhere in there, I don't know, 3, 4, somewhere in there, it got really big, right? Because I don't even remember how many seasons there were. I think 6, maybe 6 or 7.
I think it's 9, but yeah.
Is it 9? Really? Yeah.
I believe so. I think some people would be okay if it ended after 7.
Yeah. Because towards the end, I remember hearing some of the talk about that, but I was just like, don't tell me. So,
I'll watch it eventually.
Yeah. The one I recently watched that I just finished, and it's only, it's a miniseries, a 4-part series, was on Apple TV, the war for football, right? So going back to chronicling the Super League debacle, right, that happened back in going to April of 2021. It's fun, very well done. So if you get the chance, I'd definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I also would recommend the All or Nothing series.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, on Amazon Prime. And then the Welcome to Wrexham with Wrexham FC was fantastic as well.
Now that one I got to finish. I think I'm only 5 episodes in, I think, on that one. Yeah. So
that's one I think if you're going to binge something tonight, that's the one.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Okay. Next one. Superpower question here. So you can only have one, right? Invisible or mind reader? Which would you want to be?
See, this is a tough one, because now I have to think about, do I want to know what people are thinking of me or what they're actually saying?
Yeah.
And so I would probably go invisibility. So you can be that fly on the wall if so to speak.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
All right. So last one here for you, Coach. If you could go back, knowing what you know now as a coach, right? Go back in time to when you were a player, how would you have coached you?
I'm very much someone. So, have you ever heard of the DISC training or
Yeah,
DISC personality test?
Right.
I found out that through some people, they tell me I'm a high I, and so I'm very much I'm a warm-hearted person who enjoys people, and I don't want people to be let down. And so I'm not the person that you yell at in order to get a task done. I'm the person you'd say, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to let your team down. And so it's not a berating. It's you have an expectation, and this is, if you don't get it done, then, you're not going to, be that guy. And so, I think I would be the one that, that coaches need to kind of take to the side, throw the arm over the shoulder and say, hey, this is why you need to do this, because I don't like letting people down. That's my personality. And so definitely I'm that over the shoulder, not the berating type of player.
Yeah. You mentioned excuse me, you mentioned the berating, and it just, for whatever reason, it just kind of, it triggered the immediate recent memory of, I'm sure you saw it, that it was trending on social media, the video of the basketball coach here at a D3 school here in Texas. Coach and school won't be named, but yeah, it was, in terms of just the level of, hey, this is, that very unsatisfactory, right? Very unsatisfactory. So do you have any idea what I'm talking about, Coach? Did you get a chance to see what I'm talking about?
I have multiple. I mean, that's where I'm from, and so I have multiple people who I know from there, and so I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And that's just never who I've wanted to be. It's never. I don't think that. There used to be a way that players and coaches interacted, and I don't think that's the way that the world is anymore. And so I spoke earlier on the relational portion of what we want to be, and that's who I am. I actually have a player that was at Cisco with me that's at Howard Payne now on the women's side. And so I know that she's communicated with some of the guys about my style and things like that. And so they understand, I believe, that I'm not going to be the guy that, even on my worst day, is going to sit there and yell at you. I'm going to be the guy that wants to pull you aside and have a conversation about where I'm at and what I'm feeling and why I'm, feeling the way I'm feeling.
Yeah. Well said. Coach, this has been great. Really great info from you today. Have loved having you on. We've been thrilled to have you on and join us today. So as we wrap up here, and as is customary, we always like to wrap up with what we call our final piece here of final thoughts. And since you are our guest, as is customary, we always like to have our guests go first. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, first and foremost, we spoke a little bit about your history as well in the military. So thank you for your service as well. And there's so many great people that are inspiring, and many of them have been in that background. And what you're also doing for the sport and for Texas high school soccer and for promoting the colleges as well. Even measly old Division III coaches over here. That was a sarcastic comment, obviously, but
right.
greatly appreciate what you are doing for the game within the state, and it cannot be understated how needed it is for and how great it is for a resource like this to be available for student athletes to say, I don't know about this school, but I found this podcast, and they can listen to whoever has been a guest on here. And so whether that's junior college coaches, it's Division III, Division I, Division II, whoever, men, women, I want to be a proponent of the junior college route. I want to be a proponent of women's soccer still, because those are both huge parts of our landscape. And so, again, thank you for having me on and letting me speak on where I've been and what's to come. And can't thank you enough.
Yeah. Thank you for your kind words, but really appreciate you being here, and cannot stress it enough. We really wish you with all the blessings that you recently had and you have coming. Want to wish you the absolute best with everything, right from the expansion of the family to building the program there, the men's soccer program there at Howard Payne, being able to be reunited with your mentor as well and Coach Badgley. So tremendous success, tremendous luck. We know you're going to put in the work. So thank you for the kind words again. And I'm going to kind of echo, my final thought is kind of echoing a little bit on what you hit on in terms of the D3, right? Is in one of my other roles as director of soccer for College Promoters USA, I speak to hundreds and hundreds of families and student athletes, and inevitably the D3 question comes up, right? Just like the junior college question comes up, but the D3 question comes up, and it's like, hey, what are your thoughts on it? What are your experiences with it? And because everyone just has grown up in this D1 or bust mentality, right? This D1 or bust world. And what I often tell them is my experiences and all of my interactions with multiple D3 coaches, former D3 student athletes is, and you mentioned one of them, is there's two words that routinely come up, and they are purity and balance, right? The purity of the game, right? And because you have student athletes that are there to both grow as people, grow as students, and continue and grow as athletes, right? Continue to play, the sport that they love. But you also have the balance piece, right? In terms of the ability to truly be a student, you're going to be expected to attend classes, and you're going to be expected to hold up your end there. I mean, that is the point of emphasis, right? Along with the athletics, right? So that's the true balance, and you're also going to be afforded the opportunity to maybe do the internships, right? Or the summer abroad, some of the stuff that you won't necessarily be able to do with some of the other divisions. So I cannot stress that enough, is you really take away, list when you're looking at schools for the recruits out there, for our PSAs, our prospective student athletes, cover the name of the school, cover the name of the level, right? And just list the schools just based upon their merits, right? And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. And the other piece too is that you have, I believe, the ratio, right? And granted, this obviously the enrollments are smaller, but the ratio in terms of student athlete, it's like 1 in every 6, I believe, or it used to be 1 in every 6 students at a D3 institution is a student athlete. So there is this certain still, small community where you're going to be able to interact with another student athlete, not to mention the support network of being with a team, right? So yeah. So anything you want to follow up with that, Coach?
Yeah, no, I mean that's such a great way to look at it, and I might have to start using that in my recruiting pitches. Just look at all the amenities from us, cover the name,
right.
And
as long as I get royalties, Coach. As long as I get royalties, I'm fine. That's fine.
But
good stuff.
It is the balance of everything. It is a great way to, and also just the amenities that are available to you. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but at Howard Payne, just the mentorship available, the like you said, the internship opportunities, the ability to be so closely knit with your professors, with the small class sizes, and like my first couple days, I would come back to Brownwood in the afternoon, and I would just walk into the buildings so I could say hello to everybody. And so many of the people that are still working at Howard Payne are people who I was around my 6 years there as a student, both in undergrad and graduate school. And so walking into the kinesiology building and seeing all my old professors, and into the administrative buildings and seeing all the financial aid ladies and registrar, HR, it's just, you get so much of a family and community aspect at those small schools that you're not going to get necessarily at a big school, and at least not on the same scale. And so Division III can be a great proponent for that atmosphere.
Yeah. Perfectly said. So thank you again, Coach. This has been great. I've loved having you on. Just very informative as well. Know you're going to do great things at Howard Payne. And for our listeners, again, and maybe you're new, maybe you're just joining us for the first time, maybe you're hearing this on the audio podcast format. Again, you can find us. You can find us on social media, on Twitter at 50_50pod, as well as on Instagram at 50_50 podcast. And then you can also find us streaming both on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. And also we're now on Twitch, been on Twitch now for about a month and a half, I think. And we're also there at 50_50 pod. So this has been great, Coach. Thank you again. Wishing you the absolute best on many, many fronts in 2023. And we look forward to keeping up with you. Maybe we can have you here again in the coming future, maybe at the end of season 1 with Howard Payne. So
we could revisit that success question.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listeners, for our supporters, thank you. Continue to download. Again, you can find us on all major podcast platforms. Just look up the 50/50 podcast on all major podcast platforms as well. But until the next time, you know what to do. Keep downloading and keep listening.
College Promoters USA.
You've been listening to the 50/50 podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 50_50pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.